It was a calm December morning in 1872. Out on the Atlantic, there was no storm, no thick fog, just endless blue stretching to the horizon. When a group of sailors climbed aboard a drifting ship, they heard something impossible. Nothing, no footsteps, no voices, no sounds of a struggle. The cargo was untouched. Food still sat in the galley. The captain's belongings were laid out neatly in his cabin. Yet 10 people, including a small child, had vanished without a trace. What could force an entire crew to abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship, never to be seen again? On December 4, 1872, the British brigantine de Gratia spotted a ship drifting aimlessly in the Atlantic Ocean, about 400 miles east of the Azores. From a distance, the vessel looked fine. Its sails were partially raised, the hull was steady, and there were no distress signals. As the de Gratia's crew got closer, a deep sense of unease setting. The ship was silent, showing no signs of life. No one answered their calls. When they finally boarded, the name painted on the stern revealed its identity: Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste had sailed from New York just a month earlier, heading for Genoa, Italy. On board were Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 experienced crew members. Stepping onto the deck was like stepping into a moment frozen in time. The galley was orderly. Personal belongings were untouched. The ship's logs were neatly written up to a point, and there was still 6 months' worth of food and fresh water on board. But one critical thing was missing: the ship's only lifeboat. There were no signs of violence, no bloodstains, no broken furniture, no damage that could explain why everyone had left. The Mary Celeste was not sinking. In fact, she was still perfectly capable of sailing. Somewhere between New York and the Azores, 10 people had vanished, leaving behind a ship that looked like it had been abandoned in a hurry, yet without any sign of panic. This is where the real story begins. A story far stranger than any fiction. The key to unlocking the mystery of the Mary Celeste lies deep within her cargo hold: 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. This substance, also known as denatured alcohol, was highly flammable and notorious for producing invisible, explosive vapors. Decades after the incident, a crucial discovery was made. 9 of the barrels were found to be empty. They weren't broken or smashed. They had simply leaked. Modern science tells us that alcohol vapors can accumulate inside a ship's hold, and if they ignite, they can cause a pressure wave explosion. It's a powerful blast of air and noise, but it doesn't necessarily produce flames or leave scorch marks. Imagine you're Captain Briggs, a cautious and experienced sailor. You smell fumes coming from the hold. You know your cargo is dangerous. The fear of a catastrophic explosion, one that could rip the ship apart in an instant, must have been overwhelming. Researchers now believe he made a calculated, life-saving decision. Get everyone off the ship, just for a little while, until the danger passed. They likely lowered the lifeboat in an orderly fashion, not in a mad scramble. Evidence suggests they even tethered the lifeboat to the Mary Celeste with a long rope, planning to return once it was safe. This wasn't panic, it was precaution. But the ocean is unforgiving. Once they were in that small lifeboat, bobbing on the vast Atlantic, anything could have happened. A sudden gust of wind, a snapped towline, or an unexpected wave could have separated them from the mothership in a heartbeat. The Mary Celeste, with its sails partially set, would have drifted away faster than they could row. The ship sailed on, but the people who had just left it were now hopelessly adrift. The Atlantic doesn't need a storm to be deadly. Even on a calm day, the currents, winds, and sudden shifts in weather can turn a survival situation into a tragedy within minutes. If the crew entered the lifeboat expecting to return shortly, they probably didn't bring enough supplies for a long journey. The ship's navigational instruments were missing, likely taken by the captain to keep track of their position while they waited. But once they were separated from the Mary Celeste, their tiny lifeboat would have been nearly invisible. No radio, no flares, no rescue ships on the horizon. Survival would have become a race against time. Exposure alone could have been fatal. Dehydration would set in within days, hypothermia at night, heat exhaustion by day. The most haunting part of this story is how close they were to safety. The Mary Celeste itself remained afloat for weeks. If the crew had just stayed on board, history suggests they would have safely reached Europe. Instead, every single decision they made seemed logical at the time, yet each one led them toward an irreversible fate. This wasn't a story of madness, mutiny, or monsters. It was a chain reaction of rational choices made under the threat of an invisible danger, where human instinct collided with nature's cold indifference. History rarely turns on dramatic events. Sometimes, it shifts on quiet decisions, made with fear, reason, and hope. When the Mary Celeste was eventually towed to Gibraltar, a formal maritime court launched a full investigation. Every plank, rope, and logbook was examined. The ship showed no structural damage. The water pumps were working. The navigation charts were up to date. The captain's final log entry, written 10 days before the ship was found, showed nothing alarming. Most importantly, no evidence of foul play was ever verified. Early suspicions fell on the crew of the Dei Gracia, the ones who found the ship, but financial records and testimony quickly cleared them. Theories about insurance fraud or a pirate attack also collapsed. Nothing of value had been stolen, and the cargo was intact. It wasn't until the 20th century that science provided the most plausible answer. Controlled experiments recreated the conditions in the Mary Celeste's hold. Scientists proved that alcohol vapor could ignite and create a loud, pressure-based blast without leaving any scorch marks, matching the ship's condition perfectly. Today, most maritime historians agree. The crew abandoned the ship because they feared it was about to explode. It was a fear that felt incredibly real, but the danger wasn't fatal until leaving the ship made it so. For the families of those lost, there was no closure. No bodies were ever recovered. No graves to visit. No certainty. Captain Briggs was known as a deeply religious, disciplined, and responsible man. He had specifically chosen a safe ship and an experienced crew for this voyage. The loss was made even more tragic by the fact that his wife and 2-year-old daughter vanished alongside him. The newspapers of the time sensationalized the story, inventing tales of sea monsters and mutiny. But the truth was much quieter, and in many ways, more painful. 10 people disappeared because the ocean gave them no second chances. The Mary Celeste herself continued to sail for years under new owners, as if her past was just a strange footnote. She was eventually wrecked deliberately off the coast of Haiti in an insurance scam, a final, sad chapter to her bizarre legacy. But the human cost of her most famous voyage had already been sealed. The mystery of the Mary Celeste endures, not because we lack answers, but because the most likely answer is almost unbearable. This wasn't a ghost ship. It wasn't a curse or a supernatural event. It was a stark reminder that nature doesn't need drama to be deadly. It only needs timing. A single misjudgment, a cautious decision made a moment too soon, a rope that failed, a wind that shifted. The ship survived, the people did not. And that stark contrast between the safety that was just within reach and the tragedy that occurred is what continues to haunt maritime history. Sometimes, the most terrifying stories are the ones where everything almost went right. So what would you have done? Would you have stayed aboard a ship you believed might explode at any second? Or would you have taken your chances on the open ocean? Was abandoning the Mary Celeste a fatal mistake? Or was it the only reasonable choice they had at the time? History gives us the evidence, but it doesn't give us absolute certainty. Share your thoughts in the comments below. This mystery isn't about ghosts. It's about human judgment. And if this story stayed with you, remember the ocean holds many more truths, still drifting out there, waiting to be found. Thanks for watching.